everyone. Thank you again for the invite to hear me speak. I've been speaking at ThingMonk since the beginning, as mentioned. And this talk is really going to be a bit of a troll, hopefully some serious bits, but it's going to be trying to kind of get people thinking of some lessons of what we've experienced, some things we're probably doing very wrong as an industry. I'm not going to give you a solution, I'm just going to go, we're doing this wrong, it's on fire, lol, bye. But before I start, we sponsored the diversity program for ThingMonk, and I just wanted to kind of give a shout out to all of the attendees. Welcome to this community. It's an amazing community. The IoT community is full of very sensitive, lovely, extremely intelligent people. Join us, be part of this community. Hopefully, I mean, this ask that we have from you, from sponsoring it, is really, we want to see you again. The IoT meetup is constantly kind of running monthly. And I also want to see you here, hopefully speaking this time next year. So this is not a free ticket. This is actually a commitment for life. So, haha, you didn't know that when you signed up, but there you go. And just a little bit about me. So I'm a computer scientist. I love data. The outlook that I have of IoT is why I got into it was the data side. And this talk is going to be slightly self-deprecating because I'm going to make fun of myself and all the data people in the room. But Open Sensors, we've been around, a couple of years. It's been an amazing journey, I have to say. Like IoT as a thing was not a thing probably when we started. Well, it was a thing for this crowd, but not mainstream. Most people said, "What the hell are you doing with your life?" when we first started. Now we're like, yay, we're hip. We're actually, just to kind of tell you what we are. We're a community platform. I hate the word platform, but anyone that publishes data can kind of access it, can use it for free on IoT. So we concentrate on real-time data. If you have environmental data and so forth, you can publish it for free and other people can access it, right? That's the basic premise, and that's how we started. And then we said, actually, well, if you do that, then the way we make money, we make revenue, is by kind of enabling private sensor networks. And this is really, it started as not a business, it started as a side thing, a couple of meetups at ThingMonk, and we found clients and we turned it into a business. So it's kind of an amazing ride. So open data, for those of you that don't know, comes with clear licensing terms like open source. You can reuse the data that's available. You can attribute the publishers, but you can reuse it. You can make money on it. It's there for you. And just to do, most of you guys have heard this spiel, but why is open data important for IoT especially, is because of the things that Boris talked about. It kind of, actually, hardware is very, very expensive. Maintenance of hardware is very, very expensive. We should not have to be reinventing the wheel every time. There's a lot of kind of silo thinking, and I like the way kind of Dominic talked about it in the sense of kind of the web of things. We should have a way to kind of communicate, and this is not about platforms as such. This is about what are we going to build, and how do we make it so that we build the best thing that's the best for people to use. It's not about us as companies. It's about everyone else, and it's fairly kind of an important task. And I think people get it. And the transition has been, we had folks that are kind of small scale. Hardware tinkerers, makers, publishing open data, to nowadays, like big organizations are starting to publish open data, the sensor data, some large kind of worldwide organizations are publishing open data. And for me, this is a big kind of tick of validation. Just a quick way of how it works is it's a very simple concept, but simple is not easy, as you all know. Sensors publish data, you mark it as private or public, and you can access both. If it's your private sensor network, you can overlay information that exists around it and get the data, see the data. There's real-time APIs, historic APIs, SSCs, WebSockets, that kind of thing. That's it. I mean, it is simple, but it is really, really hard. But this is where the trolling starts, and this is the fun bit. So what is the point of what we're doing? And I think, most people kind of go, well, at least the Gartners of the world go, oh, well, it's all about the data there, But IoTs, I think, sometimes lacks in and as an industry, we all have to take responsibility in bridging the gap between actually how do we create something useful for people? How do we kind of bridge the gap between the makers and people? And it's not in terms of business speak and what's the business value and all this kind of stuff. And whilst there is that, but actually, how do we fundamentally change? How do we fundamentally make a change? And how do we let people understand information, right? Where the dashboards that I see, and I haven't picked on any one IoT platform as such, I just went for a generic kind of monitoring dashboard, but this is what you get, right? You get, temperature graphs going around, and you get kind of, but what's the point? Like, you've spent a lot of money. If you've deployed a trivial number of sensors, 100 sensors, you've actually spent a lot of time and money deploying this stuff. How do you get people to understand it better? And how do you create the difference between what exists today? If there was no sensors, and you deploy a sensor, like what is the change that you're going to make, right? And I think every deployment nearly should be challenged. What is the difference? How do you make somebody's life easier? How do you make it efficient? How do you make somebody's workplace kind of better for them? Can you quantify that before you go around kind of, spending shit tons of money? And work on problems that matter actually sometimes sounds like you have to be Google. Actually, building kind of HR software that makes something that makes a meaningful improvement to somebody's life is good enough, right? It doesn't have to be on a global scale, but it has to mean something. And these are how I try to kind of judge projects that at least I get involved in. It's like, will we make an impact, or would it be exactly the same as it was before, and we just take people's money and walk away? Because it's not the cost of the hardware, and as Boris has touched on the parking problem, it's the maintenance, right? So the installation and maintenance cost can be 4 to 10 times the sensor cost, right? If you dig in parking sensor in the ground, somebody's going to have to come and dig it up when it's down, and it will go down, right? So how do you enable it so that it actually makes an impact? And some of it is open data, and others is actually what you integrate with. So I'll go into some learnings. We did a community project probably about a year ago. The residents were kind of unhappy about the fact that they weren't getting consulted around air quality issues. Actually, the Heathrow kind of third-way expansion. And we just put a call: who wants to host some air quality sensors? And loads of people volunteered. And we picked, I think out of 70 volunteers, we picked something like 20. Put some air quality sensors in their back gardens, noise sensors. And people were ecstatic about this. And this was the only data point that was coming out of Heathrow at the time around air quality and noise, which, again, was kind of ridiculous. You had this massive push to expand the third runway, but actually no one had taken data. This is not necessarily a subjective matter, but no one had done significant enough environmental reviews. And out of that, the impact really was, kind of, the data was discussed in Parliament. The noise levels, the air quality levels were severely beyond the European kind of regulations. So now they're actually stepping back and doing a proper environmental review. And to me, this is impact, right? We haven't changed the course of history. We haven't changed necessarily the outcome and the decision, but we've made people think. And that's good enough. But from that, there was a lot of learnings, and one of which was the people that are looking at the data are not technical. So there was a lot of bit of soul searching, I suppose, around in the company. We said, well, is it really truly open if it's only available as, JSON formats like that, and it's, you can download it via an API. So there is a technical barrier to entry for anyone to view this data. So is that really open? For open source, I think that it is slightly different because the users of open source software are going to be quite technical folks. But for open data, they're not necessarily, right? It's people that are being impacted by any number of things. So people that care about air quality deploy air quality sensors. There's groups around the US, around the coastal regions that are deploying water quality sensors. And it was very, very important that these people could understand that we don't make comments, we don't make judgments, and we're completely neutral. But we have to enable them to see the data in a way that they can understand. So we learned and got better. So we kind of did a massive re-architecting exercise where we added schemas and metadata and so forth. And this massive effort has been to make the data usable. How do we make the data usable? Because there's no point if all of this open data, I think right now something like, I can't remember, but something like 20 million open data events a day, right? How do we make this stuff useful for people that it's not just going into the ether or applications or applications of people that actually only know how to use APIs? So the newer approach has been kind of really thinking through very, very slowly how to make this data set usable. And then there's been some interesting things. So we had AR companies coming and saying, well, we kind of let people scan their phones over objects and items, and we tell them information about this world. Can we take some of your data or a lot of your data and actually give them information? And this has been kind of amazing. So Blippar are one, Thomson Reuters are starting to ingest the data, and they're treating it as news content, right? They're saying like this. So the IoT data, the kind of the nitty-gritty kind of low-level stuff that we take in, is being replaced and is being turned into kind of much more human understandable, much more human readable formats. And the interfaces are not us, right? And that's perfectly fine. I'm actually quite happy that it's not us, because you can't build for everything. And then we get people like architects that are kind of saying, well, we use 3D rendering applications, and we want to understand the data around our buildings. We want to be better about redesigning stuff. We want to use real data to actually work out, using a footfall data, work out where the toilets are, work out where kind of the noisy areas are, so we can put sales and marketing teams in the noisier areas and put development teams in the quieter areas. And we're like, yeah, sure. So we're building integrations into the 3D rendering kind of applications that they use. And again, the interfaces are not us, but this is all like using data for planning. And the interesting thing that I'm seeing is that when they do new developments in 3D repos, like a BIM, very kind of, if you're into buildings, is a thing. And they integrate with us. And they're using all of the open data. So some of this kind of circle is becoming complete, right? You're using open data around traffic, around air quality, to start planning the next generation of cities and buildings. And to me, this kind of weird thing starts making sense. This thing that we've started doing starts making sense, because now you have this loop where the network that is important for people to build something on. And the way they look at it is not about monitoring dashboards and so forth. It's in the everyday tools that they use, the news content that they use, the kind of architectural design models that they use. And that, to me, is the physical the physical web, is we're rendering, we're taking data, we're augmenting information, and we're making kind of the world a little bit richer in terms of information. So this is my learning. The way we have got success is not through doing it ourselves. It's been an interesting transition. We're seeing a lot of our open data community users are turning into businesses. So we have, HereLab are selling their kits. Talk to Andrew over there with Thing Innovations. He makes kind of amazing kind of EMV boards. And a lot of these stuff, they're kind of creating, the kind of the loop is these guys know how to build hardware. They've done a lot of the R&D, and now it's just kind of commercializing it. And how do we feed that open community that really kind of generates most of the interesting stuff? And as a result, we have kind of the bigger and bigger guys are coming in, and they're publishing data. Arab are going to publish buildings data from all of their buildings around energy data that will be public fairly soon. So the bigger guys are starting to understand the value of the public data that they're using, and they're also starting to contribute in it. And with that, that is my learning. So whoever you are, it doesn't matter. Like, no one cares about platforms, right? People care about information and access. And the early web, obviously, we've learned from this. We've done this already. So let's kind of shorten the learnings a little bit and recognize that friction-free movement of data is going to be the thing that will mature this industry, and we have to mature together. One last thing, we're hiring. There's no ping-pong tables, so if you want to work for companies where, solving hard problems, but not necessarily full of bros, call me. I would do a call out for the diversity speakers, diversity participants. Come and see me. They say that guests and fish smell bad after kind of 4 days, and this is my 4th appearance. And I would love for somebody next year to actually represent open access and talk at ThingMonk, and because I probably have said everything that I'm going to say. So thank you very much, and some information here, and thank you.